All right, everyone. I am deviating from our typical fitness and wellness programming, well being programming today because honestly, some things are bigger than burpees and kale smoothies and protein. As you well know, California is burning, and this isn't just another news story that we can passively consume. This is a crisis that is unfolding and affecting so many people, families, communities. And yes, what's super interesting is that it's affecting the wealthy, the celebrities, and that is forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our relationship with the environment and the systems we built. So, because it is all over social media and all the celebrities are talking about it and with tears in their eyes and they are hurt by this, it is like a big in your face kind of emergency call. Welcome to Bodyholic with Dee. No fads, just facts. I'm Dee, and I'm here to help you ditch the noise and build a life you love. Let's go. Oh, but wait, I'm not a doctor, so use your common sense. Now let's dive in. Kind of emergency call. And I want to be clear, I'm not trying to be a jerk standing on the sidelines and criticizing wildfires are still raging and people are suffering. This is a heartbreaking situation, and my heart goes out to everyone who's been impacted. But I also believe that it's important to talk about what's happening as it's happening to understand the underlying causes and to explore solutions. Because once it's in the past, and people forget to talk about it and surface it. And this isn't a one-time event. This is a wake-up call. It's a glimpse into the future. Things have been happening. And, it's the future that we're creating. And if we don't change our ways, then it's going to look a lot more like this. So we've all seen the images, right? We've seen these infernos raging across hillsides, once vibrant communities reduced to ash, reduced to rubble, families fleeing with only the clothes on their back and absolute fear in their eyes. And this isn't just another California is burning story. This is a visceral experience. It's a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our world and the fragility of our existence. So I want to delve into the science behind this crisis. Climate change isn't some abstract concept anymore. It's the driving force behind these mega fires, intensifying the heat, prolonging droughts, and diminishing snowpack. I want to recap for a second. Snowpack is basically a big compressed pile of snow that accumulates in mountainous areas and other cold regions during the winter. So you can think of it like a giant natural reservoir of frozen water. So the data paints a clear picture. California's average summer temperature has increased by roughly 3 degrees Fahrenheit since the beginning of the 20th century, which might seem like a very small change, but it set off a chain reaction. Increasing evaporation, drying out vegetation, and creating the perfect conditions for wildfire ignition and rapid spread. It's a stark illustration of how even subtle shifts in our climate can have absolutely devastating consequences. Okay, so it's not just 3 degrees, it's 3 degrees with a major ripple effect. And there is actually more to this story than just rising temperatures. In the current case, what I find fascinating and kind of scary is that what we're seeing is the result of decades of misguided fire suppression policies. So By suppressing natural fires, basically, we've allowed for an unnatural buildup of fuels in our forests. It's kind of like neglecting a garden. Without proper maintenance, it just becomes overgrown and vulnerable to disease, right? That's what happens in our gardens. So, in the case of California right now, it's an overgrowth of vegetation just waiting for a spark. And with unchecked development pushing deeper into the wildland urban interface, we've essentially built houses on the edge of a precipice. And the result is fires that are bigger, more intense, more destructive than ever before. So, you know what? Let's get into this a little bit more. I wanna explain a little bit more because I find this to be incredibly important. So, for a long time, the prevailing strategy in the U.S., especially in California, was to put out every fire as quickly as possible, and that's what I mean by fire suppression. Okay, the fire starts, it sparks, we put it out, and it's well intentioned, obviously. Okay, I mean, obviously, this is well intentioned, but this approach has had some unintended consequences, like the fuel buildup. And what do I mean by that? Forests naturally have fires that clear out underbrush, dead trees, and other flammable materials. So, by suppressing fires, we've allowed this fuel, we're going to call that fuel, to accumulate, making forests so much more prone to larger and more intense fires once they ignite. It's also a disruption of natural processes. The fire plays an important role in many forest ecosystems. So, some tree species even need fire to reproduce. I didn't know any of this. Suppressing fires disrupts these natural cycles, making forests less healthy and less resilient. Now, as a result, there's also changes in forest structure. So without fire, forests can become more dense and more homogeneous, which creates conditions that favor more intense fires because the flames can basically easily spread through the dense canopy. And here is why, as I see it, the policies were misguided. So there's a misunderstanding of fire ecology. We didn't fully appreciate the ecological role of the fire. We saw it as only a destructive force, not as a natural process that can actually benefit forests in the long run. And the focus was also on the short-term gains. Putting out every fire seemed like, I mean, obviously I can understand it, but it seemed like the best way to protect people and property in the short term. But this basically was the officials overlooking and ignoring the long term consequences of disrupting natural fire regimes. I'm also going to touch on maybe a more sensitive topic, but lack of resources. Effective fire management requires significant investment in things like prescribed burns, which basically is intentionally setting fires to reduce the fuel loads and forest thinning. These are practices that have been underfunded mostly. That's what it is. It comes down to that. And thankfully, there is a growing recognition that we need a new approach to fire management. And I want to get into what that includes. Prescribed burns, intentionally setting fires under controlled conditions to reduce fuel loads and improve forest health. And there's also mechanical thinning, removing some trees and vegetation to reduce the density and create breaks in the forest canopy. And there's also the option of indigenous knowledge, learning from indigenous communities who have long understood and practiced fire management. So, what this all comes down to is that this is a complex issue, but shifting away from total fire suppression is essential for creating healthier, more resilient forests and reducing the risk of catastrophic wildfires. Now, I feel like it would be absolutely wrong if I didn't shift for a moment from talking about the scientific approach to forest ecology. We do have to talk about the community and the human cost. Um, this has been a tragedy of immense proportions. Lives have been lost, homes have been reduced to ashes, and communities, like we're watching this, they have been torn apart. And the economic impact is staggering. This is billions of dollars in damages and countless livelihoods just kind of hanging in the balance. But the true cost also extends far beyond the financial realm. It's irreplaceable memories just turn to smoke, the erosion of community bonds, and the lingering of fear and anxiety. This permeates the air, and it permeates long after the flames have subsided. So, I also want to say things get really interesting here because it's not just another wildfire season where flames consume the trailers and the shacks while the mansions on the hill remain unscathed, right? This time the fire is an equalizer, a relentless force that is tearing down fences, both literal and metaphorical, the fences that separate us, right? We're seeing multi-million dollar estates reduced to smoldering rubble right alongside working class neighborhoods. Celebrities, CEOs, the titans of industry are all scrambling for safety, watching their privileged world go up in smoke. And this, my friends, is where the real conversation begins, I feel. Because when disaster strikes indiscriminately, it forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that we're all connected, that our fates are intertwined, regardless of our bank account. But the bank account balance, the zip code doesn't really matter, right? The fire doesn't pick and choose. So for the first time, perhaps the ultra wealthy are experiencing the visceral fear and vulnerability that has long been a reality for those living on the margins. I'm getting all emotional. They're facing loss of home, disruptions of livelihood, the uncertainty of future, the very same struggles that have plagued less fortunate communities for far too long. And this shared experience, as devastating as it is, presents, I know this is controversial and maybe scary what I'm saying, but it presents a unique opportunity. It cracks open the door for empathy, for understanding, for collective awakening to the fact that we are all in this together. I hope that's the opportunity that is being seen here. Will we seize this moment to forge a new path, I guess is what I'm asking. One that prioritizes equity, sustainability, and the well-being for all. I think there is an opportunity here. Yeah, had to touch on that as well. And also from a physiological perspective, I also want to say that these wildfires are a stressor of immense magnitude, impacting everyone from the most vulnerable to the most privileged. So the constant threat of fire, the displacement from homes, the exposure to smoke and the toxins, and all of these factors take a toll on our physical and mental well-being, right? And again, it's for everybody involved, no matter where you're from. So there is a need now to prioritize self-care, stress management, and community support to navigate these challenging times. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing this from afar. I'm seeing a lot of support. And I hope that that's really what's going on in practice. We also need to look beyond the individual and address the systematic issues that exacerbate these crises. This means investing in fire prevention measures such as controlled burns and defensible space clearing. It means rethinking our building codes and land use policies to minimize the risk in fire-prone areas. And it means fostering a deeper understanding of fire ecology and the roles of fire in our ecosystems. So, yeah, like I said, it's a super super complex issue, and there is no easy solution. But I do think that if we approach it with a kind of a scientific mindset and a compassionate heart and the willingness to learn and adapt, then it is possible to create a future that is more resilient for ourselves, for the next generations, a future where, the gap between the privileged and the vulnerable maybe narrows, where sustainability is not a luxury. That's what I'm getting at, but it's a necessity, right? Where we coexist with nature in a way that honors nature's power and respects its limits. So, yes, I have been thinking long and hard about this wildfire. And if you feel called to help, there are also many organizations that are doing incredible work on the ground. So you can donate to the California Fire Foundation and the California Community Foundation's the Wildfire Relief Fund. And I believe that every little bit helps. I also have mentioned this before when I've been interviewed. The Be Strong Foundation is a great foundation. Anyway, stay safe, stay informed, stay connected, and remember that even in the face of disaster, we can totally rise from the ashes and we can totally create a better world. I truly believe this. I'm going to link all the foundations below if you do feel a calling to donate. And that's it. I hope that our next episode is a positive one. But again, I had to deviate from the regular schedule. This I feel is super important to unfold all these layers and just surface them and really talk about what's going on, at least how I see it. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. And if this hit home, please share it with your crew. Likes, comments, shares, show your loved ones you care.
A Bodyholic production.